Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. We're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook and X. Please do get your thoughts about today's game. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Liverpool 2, or should I say Tottenham Hotspur 1, John Brooks and Liverpool 2. We will get into it. We will get into it. Now, of course, Isak put Liverpool 1-0 up after 56 minutes. That was after Javi Simons got a red card on 33 minutes. Ekitike doubled Liverpool's lead on 66 minutes, and Richarlison scored for Spurs. Putting that hope into a lot of us Tottenham fans that we could come back and grab a point at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And Romero was sent off as well in the 93rd minute. There is a lot to get into here. I'm joined by three very special guests with me. We've got Darren Altman back with us. Darren, how are you?
Yeah, another day, another loss. Not too bad, Chris. Thanks for having me on, mate.
And we've also got Dustin all the way from Singapore. Dustin, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Very good. And we've also got Orcun from Turkey. Orcun, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Looking forward to talking with you, fine gentlemen. Thank you for the invite. What an action-packed game. A lot to talk about, as you said.
Absolutely. Right, let's get straight into it. Let's have a look at the match facts and stats here. Now, possession, Tottenham Hotspur, 34.9% to Liverpool, 65.1%. XG, Spurs, 1.01 to Liverpool's 0.6. Shots, Spurs had 15 to Liverpool's 8. And shots on target, Spurs 4, Liverpool 4. Total touches inside the opposition box, Spurs 20, Liverpool 30. Goalkeeper saves, Spurs 2, Liverpool 4. Aerial duels 1, Spurs 9, Liverpool 16. Fouls committed, Spurs 9, Liverpool 7. And corners, Spurs 2, Liverpool 6. Darren, I'm going to start the show with you. Let's get your thoughts on today's defeat.
I just looked at my little tag from this. It's the same thing I had from Nottingham Forest, and I think you can probably leave it up there, actually, Chris. I thought our downfall was in the first half. I mean, we'll discuss the refereeing decisions. I mean, I think that I don't think the Simons sending off had that bigger effect because people win games with 10 men and they draw them with 10 men. And I didn't get the style of play again. I was just scratching my head. I didn't get what we were doing. We don't break lines. It's all so predictable. It's all sort of try and get it to our wingers, speculative crosses. I just don't like the way we're playing. And yes, we didn't help ourselves by Simons getting sent off, and obviously Romero at the end. But stylistically and tactically, I'm yet again scratching my head, Chris.
Well, Tottenham today have recorded the most defeats in a calendar year in Premier League history. I think that says a lot. You know, of course, we had hard times under Ange Postecoglou. We're having hard times at the moment under Thomas Frank. Dustin, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's defeat.
Yeah, I think that it was a difficult defeat to take. Ironically, we played better with 10 men. It felt like we had more urgency. It felt like, with 10 men, everyone wanted to put more of a shift in. And 10 men putting more of a shift in is better than 11 men that don't really. And we were more threatening even with 9 men. So it felt like Liverpool were on the ropes and we actually had an opportunity to take something from it. Not necessarily that we would have deserved it, but I just felt like the starting lineup was somewhat confusing for me. But I think we'll get into it later when you talk about that.
Orcun, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's defeat. And I know you're itching to talk about the referee, John Brooks.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think in the first half until the sending off, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think Liverpool were great today either. I think both teams started poorly. A lot of wayward passes. It's like both teams didn't really get going. Yeah, we both had kind of half chances, if you like, maybe one or two, but there wasn't really anything memorable until the sending off incident. But something that I did, as you said, rightfully, literally from the get-go, I felt that today, definitely, pretty much most of the decisions went against us. I mean, I was actually taking notes as we, because, in preparation for us chatting today, as the game went on. There was a situation where Spence was through on goal, and one of the defenders, he literally threw himself on the floor and got a foul when Spence could have been through on goal. So literally, I mean, there was a lot of every time like one of our players kind of had a 50-50 with their players, they would literally throw themselves on the floor and get a really soft foul after foul after foul. So there was a lot of stop and start. But yeah, obviously the red card happened. But after that, I've got to be honest with you, I think we finished the first half really well. I think we were definitely knocking on the door. And then, I kind of agree with Darren. I think that first sort of 30-odd minutes, 35 minutes or whatever it was, both teams are really poor, I thought. But afterwards, I don't know, whether they had a reorganization or what Frank did. I think at the start of the second half, obviously until the goals, I thought we were better. We were much better. We played with more purpose. We were more, we seemed like we were more hungry. I think, who knows, maybe the red card got the players angry. And yeah, I thought we were better in the second half. Obviously, the first goal was really poor. Again, poor from Romero today. I think it really let us down today, especially right at the end. And then I think the second goal shouldn't have been allowed. Clear both hands, pushing, Romero. Again, he's involved in everything, every sort of controversial thing. He was kind of, apart from the Xavi sending off, he was involved. But yeah, I thought the second goal shouldn't have stood. And I think we deserve, I think the way we finished the game and, the way we pinned them literally, even though at the end we had two players sent off, pretty much right at the end of the game, we could have nicked an equalizer. So proud of the players, the way they finished the game. But I wish we'd started that way. If we had started that way, Xavi hadn't done that silly thing. But I know maybe some people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't think it was a red card, Chris. I've got to be honest with you. I think, yes, it was silly. Yes, it was reckless. But if you look at the replays, it looks like he pretty much caught his calf with the tip of his boot. Rather than the whole boot, he caught him with the tip or at least the front half of his boot. And while he was stretching, if it was like a situation where he was over the player and he had his full weight on his calf, I can understand, maybe yes. But the more I see it, the more I think yellow card would have been fair, like a stern warning could have been fair. Like, as you can see from that photo, it's pretty much his toe, like his front part of the boot that catches him. The most of the boot, as you can see there, you can see the middle and the back part of his boot is in the air still. It's not on his calf. It's just the front part of his boot that's on the calf. So he's just, momentarily caught him. And I don't know. I just don't. The more I watch it, obviously, stills and slow-mo makes it look worse. But when you watch it in normal, in normal flow, the more I watch it, the more I think it's a bit harsh. But I'm told they get given. So if that's the case, fair enough. I mean, it was silly of him because Van Dijk wasn't going anywhere. He didn't really need to. But I know why he did it, because literally moments before, I think Xavi was poor today, and especially in the first half. We had a break on, and instead of turning and maybe running with the ball and really advancing the break, he gave a silly pass sideways, and the ball went out for a throw-in. And I think he was frustrated about that. And literally moments later, this incident happened and he got sent off. So anyway, I think I went into a bit too much. You just asked me my general thoughts, but I'm going to specifics. Sorry.
That's fine. Darren, let's come to you. I want to talk about John Brooks, the referee. you've been on this podcast for a number of years, and you know that we never ever moan or focus, entirely on referees' performances. But I felt that was a really poor performance from the referee today. What's your take on the referee and the officials today?
Yeah, the incident with Spence that Orcun alluded to, I didn't see how that was it a foul against Spence? I think it was very, very much a 50-50. I mean, and I think he did very well to keep his cool, Chris. He sort of had the ball and he could have let all hell let loose, but he didn't, which is all power to Jed Spence. I would disagree with Orcun. I think it's a red card for Simmons. I think he was nowhere near the ball. And I think if you hack someone down with your studs up at the back of his, I mean, he ripped his sock. Yes, in other circumstances, it may have been a yellow, but for me, it was, I had no problem with that per se. What were the other? I'm sure I'll preempt it. You've got some stills of the Ekitike goal with the two hands on the back. So maybe that was a bad decision as well. Romero getting fouled. But listen, at the end of the day, Chris, we didn't help ourselves. We just didn't. I mean, like I said too before, yes, Xavi got sent off. But I thought we were poor. From the get-go, we were poor. I thought Romero, he's our club captain. If you're on a yellow card, you don't kick someone when you're on the floor. I mean, come on. I think we're the victims of our own downfall. All right, the ref didn't cover himself in glory, maybe, you could argue, today. And I think Liverpool seemed like they had a game plan. They were going down like they'd been shot left, right and centre. But fundamentally, I think if we'd have had a game plan, if we'd have been positive in our tactics, if we'd have played forward and broken the lines instead of this side to side, play it out to the wing, it's just boring and it's predictable. And I think yes, the referee didn't cover himself in glory, nor did we. And I think if we play positive attacking football, Chris, we score a goal. We're at home, for God's sake. Come on, Liverpool aren't the champions they were last season. They're not playing the great football. They were there for the taking today. And I'm sorry, but I don't think you can blame it on the referee, John Brooks, at all today.
I think he added to it. I certainly do think he added to it. I agree with some of what you said there, Darren and Orcun. Dustin, let's come to you. Tactically, and give your opinion on the referee as well, if you like. But tactically, what do you think of our setup today? Because many people at the final whistle were applauding the team off, and many people see the way that we ended the game as a real positive.
Yeah, I think I'll give my take on the referee first and then get into it. I will try not to make jokes about what she's saying, just a tip. But anyway, for the decisions, I think that Xavi, it was a red card. For Romero's red card, that was obvious as well. The Spence decision, if he had thrown the ball, he would have gotten yellow. So glad that he didn't. Second goal shouldn't have stood because Romero is clearly pushed in the back, and it's two hands, and you can see his entire body doing like a swan dive kind of. Even if he acts that out, that he's clearly being shoved in the back. So second goal probably shouldn't have stood. In terms of the lineup, I mean, one thing that I liked about the lineup is that we finally get to see Bergvall and Xavi start in the same game. Although I would have preferred to see that combination with Odebear instead. And this is one of the few games that I would have preferred to start with Paulinho. Because if you have two creative midfielders, I'm okay with the trade-off of having Paulinho because he can do the tackling for them, and maybe Xavi doesn't need to make that tackle. So it's one of those where if you have Paulinho and Bentancur, it's too defensive. But if you have Bergvall, Xavi, and another attacking, three attacking midfielders, because you have Bergvall, Xavi, and Gray, you can afford to have a Paulinho because there's enough creativity in the other three. And him snapping into tackles and cleaning up for them means that they can focus on interplay rather than having to go back and tackle. One note about Xavi's red is that what I've noticed is that in previous games, he has been diving into tackles, and after winning tackles, he's trying to G up the crowd. So I don't know how much of it is him trying to take on the responsibility of getting the fans back on side. He got it wrong today, but there have been previous games where he's done it and gotten a response. So he's a young player, he's made a mistake, but I also wonder whether his place is predicated on putting in a defensive shift, and that's why he feels the pressure to make those kinds of tackles, even though, Van Dijk was not doing anything dangerous with the ball.
Orchie, let's come to you. Let's talk a little bit about the starting 11 today. Now, the starting 11, Vicario, Simmons, Gray, Bergvall, Romero, Kudus, Poro, Spence, Bentancur, Van der Ven and Kolo Muani. The subs today, Kinski, Dragushin is back for us after 11 months out with an ACL injury. Danso, Polinia, Richarlison, Tell, Johnson, Odebear and Davis. Now, it was just one change from the 3-0 defeat at Nottingham Forest last weekend. Bergvall in, Richarlison out. And Poro and Bentancur both making their 100th Premier League appearance for Tottenham. What did you make of the starting 11 today?
I thought it was actually good. I mean, I think when we had the fan show during the week, I said to you, I wanted to see Muani given a chance through the middle, which is what he did. And he went with more natural, maybe not natural, but more kind of wingers. He tried it. And I thought actually, Muani did quite well. He had a couple of good shots on goal. There was a chance that he created again in the first half quite early on, where he pretty much created his chance. He got a good pass and took a shot and made the keeper make a save. The one that he didn't actually save. Sorry, it bounced over the keeper and actually hit the bar and came back. So I thought that was good. So again, I think if he's given an opportunity to have a run in the game in that kind of central role until I guess we get Solanke back, I think he offers more than, although again, Richarlison came on and scored. I think he offers more than Richarlison does. Yes, Richarlison pops up, after doing nothing for majority of a game. Yes, he pops up with a goal here and there, but overall, to the team performance, he doesn't. Most of the game, he doesn't really provide much. I don't think, and he's shown that in recent games. Whereas, I liked Muani being in the center. It was, in view of the players that are available, I think that was a good selection. I agree with what some of the other guys said, that I think, yes, when we have earlier in the season, it was Paulinia and Bentancur who was starting along with either Bergvall or Xavi or whoever he fancied as a creative player, and I think sometimes it was getting too defensive. So I do like the idea of, I think, either Bentancur or Paulinia together with two more sort of, let's say, our creative players. So yeah, I thought that's the team, in terms of creative, in terms of giving them giving Liverpool a go. I thought, when I looked at the starting 11, I thought, that's a good team to put out in view of who's available. But again, coming back to, I don't think we started well at all. I mean, again, I have to say, I don't think both teams were great in the first half. I think certainly, but yeah, I mean, in terms of the players that were available, again, for example, Kudus as well. Kudus frustrated me today. I thought, there are many times when, where the break was on, and it's like he seems to always make the opposite decision of what he should be doing. So when there were plenty, even in the first half, there were a number of times when we had the break on. And instead of maybe either trying to play a through ball or trying to go forward, he was either going sideways, or he was knocking the ball back, or he was holding on to the ball too long, instead of playing it first time or trying to bring players in. And so, I don't know. And he's been like that in recent games. I think in the last couple of games, he has frustrated me as well. So, maybe he could have gone with Johnson potentially for pace potentially. But yeah, I think he pretty much started with kind of like the best team he could have done.
Darren, let's come to you. When you look at the Premier League table now, Spurs have slipped down now to 13th, 22 points from the opening 17 games. We're nearly at the halfway point of the Premier League campaign. We are now 7 points away from the top four, and we are 5 points above 17th, where we finished under Ange Postecoglou. How would you assess overall Thomas Frank's time at Tottenham?
Poor. I mean, you'll have all the stats that Sky brought up this time last season if you want to find that and pull it up. I mean, the stats don't lie. At least with Ange, we had a style of play. All right. It was kamikaze football. It was shit or bust. But it was, it was exciting when we played. We were getting forward. Like I said, we've lost our identity now. I mean, look, let me play devil's advocate. Wherever Frank has gone, Brentford and his previous teams, he hasn't started well. And there are other top managers. You look at Arteta at Arsenal, they were calling for his head. Pep didn't have the best start at Man City. So, do we give him time? I know our friend Craig is had enough of him and has had enough of him for, quite a few weeks now. Do we give him time? Do we still say he's feeling his way and we're too premature? I don't know. But all I know is what I'm seeing on the pitch. We don't have an identity. I don't like the style of football. I don't like the way we play. I don't like the fact that we don't look like scoring. I mean, again today, I was bored out my bloody mind in the first half, Chris. I think it needed a sending off, even if it was Zabi, to give a little bit of excitement. Oh, here we go. Something's happened. I just don't like our identity. I'd be interested to know what you and Orcun and Dustin have to say. But I mean, do we give him time? Is he still trying to find? And okay, let's not forget that we've got arguably our three best players out. Maddison, our sort of number 10, our creative midfielder, because Simmons isn't doing it at the moment. Richarlison, who I love again in the centre. Sorry, not Richarlison, Kulusevski, who I love at the centre. I think when he starts on the right and cuts in and plays the ball with his left, it's a little bit predictable. I like him to see him in a more central role. I mean, when we get them back, will we kick into gear? I don't know. They're going to take time. Don't forget, they haven't played Premier League football in months. So, I don't know. It's disappointing. It's disappointing. I think even when they come back, we're not going to suddenly go, wallop, here we go. We're all back. We're all firing on all cylinders. I just don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm seeing at the moment. It's not a good watch. And like I say, if we were attacking and we had a style and we had an ethos, at least we could say, okay, well, I see what he's trying to do here. And, and hopefully when the others get back, they'll fit into this new way of playing. I don't see a way of playing, Chris. And that's what's upsetting me at the moment. I just don't see a style.
As I've always said, you always need to see signs game by game, week by week, month by month. And you see that a lot when new managers do come in. And the fact that when you look at all of the stats, there's no narratives here, but when you look at all of the stats, and the stats are actually a lot worse, and it is a lot worse than last year under Ange. And the criticism that Ange Postecoglou had last year, and this was way before we won that Europa League, obviously, 22 league defeats. It's interesting how you should mention, it was TNT, pre-Newcastle-Chelsea game earlier today. Peter Crouch was asked about, is Thomas Frank under pressure? Should he be under pressure? And he actually said, when Spurs get those forward players back, i.e. James Maddison, Kulusevski, Dominic Solanke, then, judge a manager when he's got all of his forward players. Harry Redknapp in the last couple of days on TalkSport said that, it's manager, merry-go-round here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium because, we keep replacing managers, but the recruitment has been really poor. That's what Harry Redknapp said. And Chris Sutton in the last couple of days on 5 Live said that, the Spurs fans judging Thomas Frank at this stage of the season is deeply unfair. Dustin, what do you agree with or disagree with those comments that, from those three individuals?
The drum that I've always been beating is that managers can influence a certain amount of things, but then the club hierarchy is responsible for other things that is out of the manager's control. So stuff that's above the manager's pay grade is signings, right? And if the manager doesn't have enough signings to do what he needs to do, you can blame the manager for not getting the most out of the players. But ultimately, when it comes down to what the club has done in terms of signings, you've got to take that into account, that the manager can't make the club sign a player that they don't want to sign. So, as an example, we went into this season without cover for certain positions. We had, two long-term injuries to two of our best creative midfielders in Kulu and in Madison, and we signed Xavi Simmons. We were going for Morgan Gibbs-White, but that didn't go through. So we were already underweight in creativity, and we were going with a manager that was already more of a pragmatic defensive manager, and we had already lost two of our creative midfielders, and we didn't sign enough creativity to replace that. So that's why statistic that I've seen over the last few days is that we're dead last in the league for through balls. We have single digit through balls, 7. That was in the previous game. I don't know what it is now, but you cannot win or you cannot get into the Champions League if you play 7 through balls halfway through the season. So that's the other point I'll bring about style of play, which is you need to create more. And the other part about it is that, we're saying we need to be patient with the manager. And I agree we need to be patient with the manager, because if you don't give the right manager enough time, there's nothing that they can do, because they've got to clear out players that don't work. They've got to bring in the players that they need and all of that. But it's also important to make sure that you choose the right manager for this. We've had decent managers in the past that we've let go too early, Poch and everything, right? And Poch brought us so many good memories, right? 2 seasons challenging for the League Champions League final. We finally gave him one window, the Ndombele window. We finally gave him one window where we gave him enough signings, and then just because he didn't perform after that, we sacked him, right? So they're managers that you should give time to, but you also need to step back and go, it doesn't mean that every manager should have time. So what you need to see from Frank, and I'm not saying Frank out, but what I'm saying is that you need to see development. You need to see, okay, I see something there. We're not getting results, but I've seen something that goes, if this guy gets the right players, there's something there. What I'm not seeing is what's our attacking style of play. With every other coach, there's always been a style, right? You know what a Conte goal is. You know what a Mourinho goal is. You know what an Ange Ball goal is. You know what a Poch goal is. I don't know what a Frank goal is other than a set piece or long throw, right? Or winning a duel, or having something chaotic like bring Richarlison on and then he somehow scores a goal after a melee in the box. We can't be a Champions League team if you're relying on chaos to win games. There has to be a style of play. The other point I'll make is that in terms of like developing play, why do we need to be good in possession play? There are times we'll go down to 9 men, 10 men, right? And there's the Chelsea game in Ange's first season where we went down to 9, but we've looked threatening even with 9. In this game, we went down to 9, but we kind of like made a fist of it in the last few minutes of the game. But if you're really good in possession play, you can go down to 9 and still look like you're in control and still look threatening, because you can practice how to make the most of possession even with like less people. So my point is that a dominant team that wants to be in Champions League needs to develop good in possession play. And I don't see that from us right now.
Dustin, let me stay with you for a minute, because Scott writes here, too often our players won't want to play the ball either sideways or backwards. Surely this is the way that the team has been set up, because there are clearly a lack of progressive passes up the pitch. And I think also you mentioned it earlier, the amount of times that we were on the break and we could have played in a really good pass very, very quickly, but chose not to. And then we stalled and then went backwards. And a couple of groans at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium because of this from the fans.
100%. And I think this is a problem that we've had even under Ange before, where we would play horseshoe football, where you would attack down the wing and then you get no progress there, so you go back to the centre back and then you go down the other wing. We're not passing through the centre, we're not switching. So what happens is that you attack down the flank, and normally when you attack down one flank, the other flank is normally there's space there, right? Because the far side wing back or defenders, they don't really look at that because they're saying, can I go over and influence or help my team out by making out numbers there? And if you're really fast at switching, that's where you get joy. That's why we had the fullback to fullback thing from Conte and from like Ange Ball and Conte both had fullback to fullback style goals, because the switching of flanks very quickly is where you get space. But if you play horseshoe football, then the defense has time to reset. Once you pass back to the centre back, your opponents go, okay, reset, and then we're back in position. So there are two ways of switching, which is having a good long passer that switches the ball very well, but those are very hard to find. Or you have people in the middle that can play 1-2 balls, but we don't prioritize that, which is why this is the first game we've seen Bergvall and Xavi play together, right? Most of the time you have two DMs and then one creative midfielder. And you can have a creative midfielder there, but he can't play on his own, right? He needs to have interplay. He needs to play one-touch passes to penetrate down the center. If you've got one creative midfielder down the center, all he can do is make a pass, run, and hope that someone finds him. But you don't have a counterpart there that does it. That's why when we have Gray and Xavi, we've seen a little more of that, and sometimes from Spence as well. But we need to have that the majority of the time. We should have at least 4 creative players that can influence our progressive passing down the center so that we actually have a chance. Right now, most of the time, we have at most 1 or 2.
Let's get into the game itself. After 5 minutes, Mohamed Kudus put in a cross for Cowlin Mawani, whose shot was then blocked. On 9 minutes, Jed Spence was trying to take a throw-in, and it was rushed because no one was really showing for him, and then it almost let Liverpool in, which was disappointing. 4 minutes later, Liverpool had a free kick, header at goal from Van Dijk, straight at Vicario. On 15 minutes, a cross from Pedro Porro to Mawani, who headed wide. Orchie, what did you think of Cowlin Mawani's performance today? What have you made of his time in a Tottenham Hotspur shirt so far?
I think from bits and bobs that we've seen of him, I think, again, it comes back to my previous points about him not really getting enough time in a specific role. He's been switched around too much. And I think, he looks like, from the little bits and bobs that I've seen, not just in this game, but in other games, he looks like a player who, he's smart. He understands, and his understanding of the game, his understanding of the attack seems to be right, because he does try to either play players in. I mean, this season, or I think a couple of games ago when Richarlison scored, he set one up for Richarlison when, he could have been selfish and tried to score the goal himself, but instead he kind of put the ball across for Richarlison to pretty much head into an empty net. So I think he's smart. He knows, and his leg work, he seems to be a tricky player that definitely seems to be able to get past defenders. But I think so far he hasn't really had a fair run in a specific, because sometimes he's been played on the left, sometimes he's played in the middle, and sometimes he hasn't even started games. So this is why, compared to Richarlison, I think I would like to see him in that central position, at least until Solanke comes back, for him to have a run. Yes, keep Richarlison on the bench to bring him on in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes like he did today. But yeah, I see, today he was unlucky not to get that goal, the one that, went over and hit the bar just a couple of inches lower, and that would have been a really fantastic goal that he pretty much created himself. It was his tricky footwork that got past I can't remember who the defender was, but he pretty much dribbled sort of past him and kind of went into the area and then, took the shot. So yeah, I think there is something there. I think there's a good player there. But again, because of the things, I think in a better playing Spurs team, I can see Mawani getting quite a few goals. If, for example, Kudus was better, if Xavi didn't get sent off and Xavi was playing a bit better. If we create more chances, if we kind of a little bit recapture our previous, gameplay that, we saw, for example, like the way we were playing, Ange's first 10 games, that kind of football, in that kind of style of football, I can see, Moani getting, a hell of a lot of goals. There does appear to be a good player there, but I think at the moment he's playing in a team which lacks confidence, lacks intensity, and everything that we've all just mentioned about the attacking wise. I mean, even today, like for example, first half, Spence and Porro were really frustrating for me, but obviously they got better in the second half. I mean, Spence, I think in the second half, it was completely like a black and white performance. Second half he was a lot better, but first half, this is what frustrates me. I think historically as a team, Tottenham are well known, and we've always had really good right backs, left backs, right wings, left wings who would create so many different types of chances, whether it's cross into the boxes or whether wingers breaking into the box from the right, from the left, with support overlapping right backs, left backs. We're not seeing any of that at the moment. Like Darren and both Dustin and Darren have mentioned as well. We like, I think Darren was saying, we kind of seem to have really lost our identity. Now, I'm not putting that completely on. I mean, yes, it is. At the end of the day, it is down to Frank as the manager. But I think I would like to see how Moani does. Let's say, for example, when hopefully soon, when we get Kulusevski back, when we get, and I would like to see, for example, how he would have been. I think, for example, I can really see him playing well with both Maddison and Kulusevski on the field. I think you would see a very different end result there, but I don't think he's getting the service or
I was just about to say, sorry, can I? You've said the word that I was gonna. It's service. Like, I don't care who you've got up front. If you're not having, like Dustin said, those balls to feet, everything seems to be down the wing, a speculative cross, and then the ball's in the air. Like you're dealing in percentages. Then, if you're not getting the service, if someone, a creative player, whether it's Maddison, Kulusevski, Xavi, whoever, is not playing a ball to the feet of your striker, your number one, it's hit and hope. And this is where we are. As Dustin said, it's out to the wing, cross it in, and then it will be what it will be. Will it get headed? Will it get cleared? No one knows.
The prime example being Isak's goal. I mean, that's exactly how Isak scored. It was a nice little through ball,
Lovely,
right?
yeah.
And then he ran onto it, and all right, he got injured in the process, but still, what a fantastic goal! Now, that's the kind of goal that Tottenham used to always score. That's the kind of goal that
used to,
exactly. But I mean, even coming back to crosses like Kudus from the right and whoever plays on the left. I can't remember the last time I saw a really good cross into that area. Like when we do once in a blue moon, we usually end up scoring from it. I mean, Porro was someone who used to really get, quite regularly get good balls in, but I don't know what's happened to him. Like you hardly ever see any decent crosses from him anymore. Usually, like even when we do make it down the lines, the final balls are so poor. Again, these are things that supposedly they should be able to, if you're poor on something, you can actually, practice it time and time again on the pitch, on the training pitch during the week. If I was one of those players and I'm known for crossing the ball and I'm known for things, but let's say for the last couple of games, I've had poor games where none of my crosses really went into the box. I tell you what, I'd spend an extra hour on that training pitch, or I'd ask the manager saying, look, can we do some extra drills with me, please? Because I really want to get my, crossing back up to scratch again. But at the moment, our service just seems to be, whether it's through balls, whether it's crosses, whatever it might be, it just seems to be really poor. It really does seem to be really poor. And that's why I think Moani is definitely a player that is capable of a lot more, but we're not seeing it because we're not giving him the service and we're not giving him the run in the team. And I hope he will, but at the moment, so far, we haven't really given him the run in the team in that central role.
One other point I'll make about that is that the problem that we have as well is that there was a point, I think in my notes on the 23rd minute, right? I was watching a Liverpool attack, and what I noticed was the entire team was kind of marked out by our players, and I saw them move in unison. Every single player in the Liverpool's team moved into space at the same time. They made themselves free at the same time. When I watch Spurs, I'm lucky if I see two players make a run that frees them up.
Static. Yeah.
That's exactly what I got in my notes. Spurs are just so static and slow in the build-up. That's exactly what I'd written for between 22nd and 26 minutes on my notes. Yeah.
Right, let's continue talking about the first half. On 27 minutes, Pedro Porro put a cross in. Jed Spence got ahead to it, and then Cowlin headed it, and that was our first attempt on goal after 27 minutes. Darren, before I come to you on the Javi Simmons red card, of course, on 33 minutes, he was given the yellow card for the foul on his international captain, Virgil van Dijk. He has just posted on Instagram and said, "Mistakes happen. Virg is my captain. I would never intentionally hurt him or anyone on the pitch. To my Spurs teammates, my manager and the fans, I take responsibility. I am really sorry." And in Thomas Frank's press conference just now, he has said the game is gone if that is a red card. Now, let's get your opinion on whether it was a yellow or a red. And also what I wanted to ask, should VAR get involved in this point? If the referee is given the yellow card, should he then have to go over to the screen and then make that decision and then turn it into a red?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's not if it's in the box, it's a definite red, and that's a sending off straight away, no questions asked. I mean, the fact that it's not, I mean, he was nowhere near the ball. He was never going to get the ball, and that is I mean, you look at that there. That is a stud. The whole of his boot, right down the back. You know, you could break his ankle or something. So, I mean, you can't argue if the ref wants to if the ref reviews it and gives a red, then it's a red. I'm sorry. I think that photo says it all, really. Like he was nowhere near the ball. Never going to get the ball.
That's not his whole boot though. The angle makes it look like that. What you're seeing is actually the bottom of his boot, and that proves my point. The fact that yes, it was a reckless, it was a silly challenge, but it's actually only the tip of his boot that catches the back of his calf. The majority of his boot was up in the air, so he caught literally the tip of his boot, caught his calf, and then it kind of came out. It kind of then slid off his calf, and the stud on the tip of his boot kind of had ripped a little hole because he was already stretching, as you can see. He pretty much stretched out his leg, and then the tip of his boot caught the back of his calf, and the front studs got caught in his socks, and then as he was coming down, it kind of pulled and made a little hole in his socks. But I promise you, if you watch the review, obviously the photo makes it look like that, but when you watch the replays time and time again, there's a specific angle where you see it's not his whole boot. If it was his whole boot, then definitely I can understand the red card, but it really was because the toe part of his boot that caught him. So it was silly because at the end of the day, I agree with you. He was nowhere near the ball. He didn't have to throw himself like that. And at the end of the day, when you do that, you're giving, even if the referee misses it, or even if the referee deems it to be a yellow card, which he did, it was actually VAR that caused the decision to be overturned. So,
yeah,
you know,
I think regardless of like how badly he actually caught him, as players, you know that VAR is on, right? So as long as you can get punished by a red card, there's no point making that kind of tackle regardless of how much force you actually put in it, because if you can get sent off and it's a possibility, then it's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing though. I think he was frustrated because literally about 2 minutes before, or not even 2 minutes, maybe 30 seconds to a minute before then, we literally had a really good break, because I've got it on my notes. We had a break on, and it was actually him who started it. He took the ball and he turned, and instead of turning, and actually he had plenty of field to run on, like literally go forward towards the Liverpool half. he, for some inexplicable reason, turned around and decided to pass it sideways. I think it was Porro who was kind of running onto it, but his pass was too wayward and it went out to a throw in to Liverpool.
Yeah,
and there was massive groans from the whole stadium. I remember it clearly because the whole stadium groaned. I really groaned. In fact, I've got a little coffee table. I kicked the coffee table, going, "What are you doing? Why did you do that?" And then, literally about 30 seconds to a minute later, he runs off. He goes, and I think he did that to kind of make amends. I think it was the frustration of that situation, which then he did what he did, and then he got the red card.
I do agree with what Orcun said, though. I think the picture does make it look a lot worse. And this was the explanation from John Brooks, the referee.
Yeah.
After a review, the Tottenham number 7 with studs catches a Liverpool player number 4 on the calf high. It is an act of serious foul play. My final decision is red card. Now, talking to the BBC, Thomas Frank has just said, I don't like those types of red cards because I think the game is gone if that is a red card. I don't think it's reckless tackle. I don't think it is exceptional force. We have the ref's call, and that was a yellow. Dustin, just to clear this situation up about this red card, with Thomas Frank saying about it is a yellow, should VAR have got involved in this decision?
So the context is, before VAR was implemented, I was, in favor of VAR. But I have to say, the way it's been implemented, it should just get in the bin. Because right now, they're saying that, we're not going to re-referee games. But they are re-refereeing games now. And I think that if technology has a part to play in refereeing, it should be for binary things where it is offsides and, did the ball go out of play. Those are binary, right? Because you can actually see it's a yes or no answer. But once you have to talk about things like intent, you have to talk about was he involved with play and stuff like that. All of that is also contextual, and the more opinions you add to it, the more it becomes contentious. The problem with having VAR is that there's also this, and we've heard this, I think it was from Mike Dean, right? He was like, if my VAR tells me something, it looks bad on them if I don't take their decision. So whenever VAR calls a referee to the monitor, it's almost like they're just going to the monitor as for optics. They're already going to take the VAR's decision. I've never seen a referee get a decision from VAR and say, no, you're wrong, right? So it almost feels like at this point, the VAR referee has a final veto on the referee's decisions. And that just puts us in a position where, we've lost the most important thing about football. Football is the sport with the least number of goals that you can celebrate. Now we can't even celebrate goals. What's the point? We've given up too much.
On 36 minutes, Vicario made a good save from Wirtz, saving to his left-hand side. And then on 42 minutes, from a Liverpool corner, Spurs were then on the break. Kudus took too long, in my opinion, to pass the ball. And I actually wrote it down 4 times. We took too long to play a progressive pass forward, which was really, really frustrating. And for me, that has to come from the manager. The play, that build-up has to come from the manager in what he wants. And it's interesting because in the pre-match press conference, George Sessions from the Press Association said, are you preparing this game, Tottenham, what Tottenham are going to do to Liverpool rather than what Liverpool are going to do to Tottenham? Orcun, do you think that we are more defensive? Obviously, we were a lot more defensive than last year under Ange Postecoglou, but are we too defensive, especially at homes in games like this?
I don't know if we're too defensive. I think, Thomas Frank's style is always, when you look at his kind of peak Brentford team before he joined us, he's always been known for having well organized teams. And I think that's what he's trying to maybe instill here. Playing the devil's advocate, I think as much as, yes, I'm unhappy, I want the team to be playing more progressive, with more intensity, with more attacking style. At the same time, I also recognize, the kind of common sense part of me. I know this is probably not going to be very popular to our viewers, but yet he's only like 3-4 months into, or well, actually we're in December, sorry. So he's almost half a season in. But at the same time, literally from the start of the season, as we've all discussed here, he hasn't had potentially the two best attacking players that Spurs have. Like if you imagine, like if we go through all team by team, when you look at Tottenham, who would you say Tottenham's best players are now that Kane's gone, Son's gone, several players have gone? Probably quite immediately high on your list, high profile players, you're going to say Maddison and Kulusevski, who both haven't really kicked the ball so far this season. We've had Solanke out for quite a long. I'm not saying Solanke's amazing or brilliant, but I think certainly, when you compare him to, we've said it in many times in previous seasons, his hold up play actually, on a good day, which, in most games he has that. His hold up play, him bringing the wingers in and stuff, he's been all right, but again, he's been out for this. So our starting three top, creative players have been out. So, and we've all said, I think, in previous shows at the beginning of the season, I also feel that we didn't do enough in the summer. Like, there is no alternative. Like, for example, at right back, if Porro is, and I think Porro has been poor for a while, who have you got to put in there? Obviously, it's supposed to be Spence, but Spence is pretty much being used on the left-hand side. With Udogie out, again, we just don't seem to have enough cover or enough alternatives. Not even just cover, just alternative players for those attacking positions. So I've got a feeling that I think, Thomas Frank is trying to get, because when you look at last season, especially last season under Ange, there were many a times, we discussed it many times, how much of a high line we were playing with, and we just seemed to play one way. And we criticized many a times how, Postecoglou wouldn't change it up. When things weren't going well, he only had one style of play, which is high line, and we were getting caught out many a times. And yes, we were scoring goals, but we were letting in a lot of goals as well. There was literally, it seemed like defense didn't really have much of a clue. There was no real organization, whereas I think Thomas Frank is maybe going the opposite way, but in a more, he's kind of like the extreme opposite of that. I think he's overly trying to organize. He's overly trying to give everybody, right, your role is this. If this happens, go there. If that happens, go here. And maybe in a way, that's kind of constricting the creativity of some of these players. Because I've got to be honest with you, like at the start of the season, I would say the earlier parts of the season, for example, again, I'm going to use Kudus as an example. Kudus seemed to be a lot more better. He seemed a lot more threatening than he seems to now. Like now, it's almost like he second guesses himself. I remember in earlier games, he was, when he received the ball and we had a break on, he was the player that was, getting the ball and getting past several players and either going into the penalty area or at least passing it, giving a good pass and bringing other players into the attack. Whereas now it's like every time he gets it, he seems, as I was saying, like today, he seemed to do the opposite of what he should have done. Like instead of turning and running at the opposite penalty area, he was like stopping and he was holding on to the ball, or he was stopping and passing it sideways, or the old time where he should have maybe passed it, he was trying to run and get past like 2-3 players, and he kept losing the ball. So I think, I mean, obviously we don't know what goes on in the training field, but I've got a feeling that he's kind of, obviously he knows our track record last season. And I think potentially he's trying to do the opposite of how we were under Ange, which is well drilled, well organized. But I think maybe that's coming at the expense of, that kind of faster, creative, gameplay. But it could be because obviously, we're also missing some really important players. Now, hopefully, obviously, Maddison is pretty much out for the rest of the season, so we're not going to see him. But, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Kulusevski comes back. And let's see, I hope he comes back in a good condition. And also when he has another option in Solanke in attack. Because I can see maybe if Solanke in the middle and Mwani on the left, maybe that might bring, and I mean, it's difficult to say, but I've got a feeling that he's being overly cautious. He's being overly, because he doesn't want us playing that open style where we're, shipping in goal after goal after goal. So I think he's kind of gone the opposite way of what Postecoglou was doing last season, which is not really much.
Orchie, just a very, very quick question for you, and just give me a one-word answer, yes or no. Have we improved under Thomas Frank from Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham last season?
That's a difficult one. I think we're better organised, but no, because the performances aren't really there.
Darren, let's come to you. Just before the half-time break, Jed Spence was on a run. He went down. There was calls for a penalty from the Tottenham Hotspur crowd. I know a lot of Tottenham players didn't actually say anything to the referee about that. And then, of course, it was the half-time whistle, 0-0. Boos for the referee, as you can imagine. Can I ask you that and follow on from what Orchie said? When you've mentioned before in the last couple of weeks, certainly about Spurs style, the identity, are you confident that this will get better under Thomas Frank when we get those forward players back? Because I'll go back to referencing what Peter Crouch said earlier today about judge a manager when you get those attacking players back. Do you feel that it's going to be a lot better with the likes of Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke back in the team?
Well, first of all, like I said before, they're not going to hit the ground running. It doesn't work like that. When you've had months off, you have to find your feet again, if you pardon the pun, and you'll have to get back to full fitness and obviously get used to the speed of the game again. So I'd love to click my fingers and wave a magic wand and say yes from game one, game two, it's all going to be tickety boo. But I mean, I can't say that I am confident, Chris. I mean, confident because I just don't get what we're doing. I mean, all right, here's a question for you. If having Maddison back in the team and say Kulusevski more in a central role, let's say, will that allow him to change his style and play a more direct style that we were discussing at the beginning of this pod, and to change things up? If that's the case, then it could work better for us. But if they're going to come back into the team and he's still going to play this, like Dustin was saying, this horseshoe and then out to the wing and then a speculative cross in the middle, then what's the point? I want to see a more direct style. So I'm not, in answer to your question, I'm not confident. No, I'm not confident, because I think if this is the way he wants to play, and he's a very analytical guy. He talks about his first phases and his second phases and this balls and that ball. He's only happy when he's looking at the bloody monitor. So I'm not happy. I'm not confident. No. Will it allow us to play in a different style, a more direct style? Maybe. Will he choose to do that? Who knows?
Darren, let's stay with you. On 56 minutes, Liverpool took the lead through Isak. What did you make of the goal? It seemed like Romero was trying to clear it, hit a Liverpool player, and then he was played in. And a good finish. He then took a whack from Mickey van der Ven. But what did you make of the build-up to the Liverpool goal?
Well, it was suicidal by Romero. It was a rubbish ball. Their goal was unfortunately, it was a pleasure to watch. It was lovely interplay. Nice little 1-2, I think, in the box. And they deserved it. He was brave. But I don't get what Romero was doing. I just don't get what and like they said on commentary, after he gave the ball away, he then ran towards the ball and left an acre of space in behind him. So again, it was our own downfall. It's our own downfall.
Dustin, coming on to you, let's get your opinion on Liverpool's opening goal. And I want to ask you a very similar question to what I just asked Orchie about, have we improved? Everyone criticised Ange Postecoglou for our defensive displays, particularly on set pieces. Do you feel that we have improved under Thomas Frank in this first half of this season, defensively, because when you look at the stats again, the stats are actually a lot worse than last year under Ange, who had so much criticism.
So I think that it's just because a manager has a defensive style of play, right? It doesn't mean that the defense automatically becomes better, because if you have a defensive style of play but you don't have the right players for that style of play, you're not necessarily going to be able to execute your style of play well. And because the club hierarchy are kind of schizophrenic about the way they choose managers, right? You go from Pochettino to Mourinho to Nuno, then to Conte, and then like you vacillate between an attacking manager and a pragmatic manager, and then in between the players don't fit. So can you blame Frank for players that were playing Ange ball last season for not being the best at defending? They have 2 years of being drilled in a particular system, and then now they've suddenly got to switch how they play completely for a manager who has a very, very different style. It will take them time to adjust. There are some players that may not even fit that style at all. And right now he's in the stage where he can't just like sell the whole team. So he needs to try them out and go, okay, this player will not work in my system. I will need to sell him. But he needs time to find that out as well. I will say that one of the trade-offs of playing a more defensive style, a more solid style, is that you give up possession. The problem with giving up possession in Premier League is that for certain teams, giving them possession is giving them fuel to kill you with. And that's why you can be a defensive coach and come here and still get taken apart, because if you surrender possession, there are teams that take that possession and completely massacre you. So just because you're a defensive style of coach, it doesn't mean that you're always going to defend better. It matters a lot who you're up against. And I think that's kind of the problem that we have. Just to expand a little on my point, the issue with Spurs is that right now, all of the players that were signed previously, the first phone call they had was with Ange, right? They had it, like Bergvall had it. The number of players said, I talked to Ange and then I joined the club. We have a problem there because if players join for a manager and you fire the manager, then they signed up for a certain philosophy and they're now playing with a manager that may not fit that philosophy. And that's the problem with the way that we are signing right now. They should be talking to the director of football. The director of football sets the strategy and then doesn't change coaches that deviate out of their strategy. Because if you do that, all of your signings no longer fit well. So we need to blame the hierarchy for this. The hierarchy has not put in place the director of football that makes sure that we are consistent across different coaches. For example, Brighton can sack their coach, but the next coach comes in and still does, for Brighton, relatively well, because the signings are done by them. Who the coach signed is also done by them. So there's a consistency across the club, rather than vacillating between I've got this coach and then I fired him and now I have like Perisic who's 33 years old for someone that needs you to run like 12 km a game. It doesn't work.
Orchie, let's come to you. On 60 minutes, on 58 minutes, 2 minutes after we conceded the goal, Kudus came off, Johnson came on, and then on 60 minutes, Johnson put in a good cross, no one was there. 4 minutes later, Cowlin Moani, good bursting run, hit a shot, deflected straight onto the bar. It was like Tottenham came alive once Johnson came on. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. As I was saying, I think Kudus was just really ineffective today on the right-hand side. And I think, I think he's been like that for a few games now. And it must be frustrating for someone like Johnson, who's probably, we were all saying, for example, in the last game against Nottingham Forest, a player against his old club, quite likely going to be quite fired up for that game. So, why not? He hasn't really had a chance. He hasn't really had an opportunity, I think. So I think when he came on, he was definitely more brighter. It was, he seemed up for it. And I'm not surprised because he hasn't really, when other players see, this is the thing, when you have a squad, and I think at the moment we have several players who can play in that left wing, right wing. And Johnson's definitely one of those players that, I think, was it last season or the season before? He was, I think it was last season actually. Was he one of our top scorers? So, of course, I mean, Kudus, he started well the season, but in recent games, he has been off the boil. So I think he must be quite frustrated not getting a chance or not getting a start in at least some of these games. Yeah, he was. I think we were, I mean, as I said, I think once in the second half, I thought we were a lot better than we were in the first half. Of course, we were already 1-0 down. But I like the fact that there seemed to be more fight. We really seem to have the bit between our teeth. And I would say that it seemed like every time we went forward, we could have potentially scored a goal. It actually did feel like that. It felt like, and Liverpool just seemed to retreat more and more. I mean, they were still trying to break out, but again, I don't think Liverpool's performance wasn't that good. I mean, all right, they got 2 goals, but overall, I think we looked a more likely team to score after they scored. And yeah, we had those couple of chances. And there were a number of times, again, where we could have had more chances, but we didn't. But yeah, I mean, definitely, it was nice to see that, Johnson got the chance. And come on.
Darren, let's come to you on Liverpool's second goal. Frimpong with a looping cross, Ekitike with the header. Thomas Frank in his press conference just now said second goal was a mistake from the referee. There were 2 hands on the back. Now, a lot of Tottenham fans were going absolutely crazy and a lot of noise aimed towards the referee at this point. Romero was arguing with the referee. What did you make of this one? Because we've seen this many, many times. A few are given, but many aren't.
Absolutely, 100%. I think if I'm correct, I think you've got a photo of it, and it is definite 2 hands on the back. But he jumped Romero. I don't think he necessarily pushed him, like physically pushed him to the ground, but he definitely had 2 hands up for leverage. And as the old saying goes, I've seen them given, and some are, some aren't. And this case, it was given. The goal, I mean, sorry, not the foul. And in another day, another referee might have gone, no, you can't do that. That's it's disallowed. So, listen, I think, as I said right at the beginning of the show, I think we were our own downfall. I think, all right, you could say it was a 50-50. Was it a foul or not? The Xavi sending off, 50-50. Was it a red card or not? But I'm not avoiding the question, Chris, but if you don't create chances and play forward-thinking, attacking football, you get what you deserve. So, I mean, some might say yes, it was a foul. Some might say no, it wasn't. But I mean, for me, I'm not crying into my beer tonight. I just think it's one of them. That's my opinion.
When you consider though the fouls that he was giving in the first half against Tottenham, I mean the Spence chance, where he was going to go through on goal, literally,
the
Liverpool player literally threw himself on the floor. Spence didn't even touch him,
I know.
if that was a foul, then I'm sorry, this is a foul, 100%, Darren. Like VAR just being selective on what they're gonna pick up on. Okay, look, red card situations, fair enough. We can argue all day about whether it was fair or not, but I think, because I don't know, again, the stills don't do it justice, because again, I watched the replay several times. Even before the ball is anywhere near both players, he actually jumps up. He actually jumps up first, and as Romero is timing his jump according to the ball coming over, but the Liverpool player jumped slightly just before he did, and as he does, he goes literally with both hands on Romero. So it wasn't like when the ball was there, it wasn't like a 50-50. He'd already, even without looking at the ball, he pretty much first of all put his hands on Romero and then went for the ball. So to me, that was like his first intention was to take Romero out and then play the ball. And from my understanding of the rules, even with fouls in other parts of the pitch, if like, you know, when plays, sometimes you see this in replays, like when a ball is played in and without even looking at the ball, if a player is looking at the player and takes him out and then gets the ball, that's always given as a foul. So, you know, and the replays clearly show that the Liverpool player, you know, went for Romero first and then the ball after. So on that basis, that's why I think it's a foul all day long. That goal should not have stood.
We had a penalty given on Bentancur for this, right? Like Bentancur was in a DDPT position, but because he was not looking at the ball when it was in the air, we had a penalty given.
Exactly.
Dustin, let's come to you. And I know this is going to be a lot of questions in one, and I know this is going to probably be a lengthy answer from you. Now, on 68 minutes, Thomas Frank was shown a yellow card. 3 minutes later, Gray and Bergvall came off. Odobert and Polinia came on. On 80 minutes, Richarlison on, Mawani off. On 83 minutes, of course, Richarlison scored for Spurs. And then 3 minutes later, Richarlison threw on goal. He was tackled. Romero was then sent off in stoppage time in the 93rd minute. Pedro Porro had a chance in the 96th minute to make it 2-2. Dustin, talk us through Richarlison's goal and why Spurs showed so much more energy with 10 men and then so much more energy with 9.
That's a lot of stuff to go through. Okay. I will start with something that I noted down at like on the hour mark, right? I was like, Romero is in a striker's position and bundling people over. He's going to get sent off at this rate. So that was the first thing I said, like on the hour. The other part was at 74 minutes, Romero is clearing the corner, and then after that he dashes into attack. He's properly on tilt now. So this is Romero trying to make up for the fact that he conceded the second goal and just not making decisions as a captain or defender anymore. As for the chaos, I think that when you're in a situation where you're down to 10 men, or when you're in a situation where you go down to 9, all things being equal, the team with less players wins. The team with more players wins, unless you create chaos. And there's no better agent of chaos than Richarlison. So bring him on when you're down to 9, down to 10, means that there are going to be a lot of things that happen. He will cause chaos in the box, and that's exactly the goal we scored, right? It was just having chaos in the box, your multiple deflections, making it melee, you need someone like that to battle. And that's why at the start of the game, I was saying that this is actually one of the games that I prefer Paulinho to Bentancur, because we need someone that gets in their faces, because they have quality. When a team has better quality than you, cause them chaos, make it difficult for them, make it unpleasant for them. And that's why, even though generally I find the balance of not of having Paulinho for progressive passing is bad, I think in this case, because we had 3 creative midfielders, having Paulinho on to cause chaos and then Richarlison on to cause chaos. In fact, this goal was also Paulinho on trying to shoot. So you have 2 agents of chaos there, getting in Liverpool's faces, and they couldn't take it, right? So I think for what it's worth, that was the right call for Frank. I think Odobert should have started the game, but that's a separate issue. But I feel that Frank adapts. One thing that I'll give him credit for is that he adapts well to the situation and the game state, and he makes substitutions and gives specific instructions for how the team that he's playing against can be disrupted.
Last question for you all. Darren, let's start with you. Crystal Palace away up next. Of course, it is Christmas. It is the festive period now where we should all be celebrating with families and forgetting about Tottenham Hotspur for a few days. But of course, we are back in Premier League action on the 28th of December at Selhurst Park. This is going to be another tough game, followed by Brentford away on New Year's Day, another very tough game. How do you see the Crystal Palace game going, and what changes do you think that Thomas Frank might make?
I don't know. I'm not. It doesn't fill me with confidence, Chris. This performance. I don't know. We could get battered. You know, we could. I just don't know. I don't know what Tottenham's going to turn up. We were hoping that today we were at home against Liverpool. You know, we really needed to put a performance, and we didn't. Like, you know, the first half, our performance was dross. It was dire. There was no sense of urgency to me, anyway. So it just doesn't fill me with. It's so tight this season. You know, the table doesn't lie. It's so tight. You know, but I don't see. I can't. I'll be lying if I was sit here and say we're going to learn from this and we're going to go. You know what I'm like, Chris. I've been doing your show for a few years now, and I've always said to you in the past, a defeat is a chance to learn. And when you got someone like Thomas Frank, who's very analytical and loves all the stats, he can look at the reasons that that you've lost, the style of play, the sequences, and he can learn and put it into practice to come better for the next game. I don't see that at the moment, and that's the worrying thing. That's what really worries me. I don't see any growth from this team. There's a word for you. I don't see any growth. And so where's the progress going to come from? I don't know. The Christmas elves? Who knows?
Darren, do you want to give us a score prediction or take or pass on that one?
No, I don't know. I'll pass. I because there's no point. I don't. Today we had the opportunity. Liverpool were there for the taking today. They were there for the taking, and we just didn't seize on it.
Orchie, how are you feeling ahead of the Palace game on the 28th?
Well, obviously Romero isn't going to be playing in that game, so most likely Danzo is going to come in, unless I know he partners. He brings Drakusin in. As you said, he was on the bench today. He's back, which is good. Probably just in time now that Romero is going to be out for 3 games. Yeah, it's a mixed one. I mean, do we know if anybody's coming back by that time? Probably not, right? None of them, like Kulusevski, Solanke, none of them are close, are they? So no option. So pretty much most of what we saw from the bench today. I mean, look, I saw, I would say maybe previous Spurs would have, like today, going down to 10 men, even at 10 men, there's a chance that we could have capitulated and, Liverpool could have gone on to win 2-3-0. And again, we could have given them, but we didn't. We really seem to, as you said, we seem to have come alive. We see the performance got better. Not that it was a fantastic performance, but, after we went down to 10 men, and maybe it was the feeling of injustice, or maybe it was, it brought the players closer. It gave the players a more of a, it really fired them up, maybe. I don't know. But I think, this game, I would say overall, I agree that I think a lot of the refereeing decisions went against us today. So I don't know if he can get them riled up for the Palace game, and it's going to be an opportunity. I mean, there's 2 players who got red carded today. So there's going to be opportunity for players to come in, and, the other players who maybe have been frustrated recently for not getting game time. Well, there you go. There's your chance. Come in, give a top performance, and show that, give the manager something to think about, So I think it's a good opportunity from that perspective. But, this is, again, I wouldn't be surprised if, we give a better account of ourselves. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult, Chris, because, we keep saying that week after week. And, Darren does rightfully say we haven't really seen any growth, any progress in recent weeks, So that does worry me. Obviously, our roster is going to be 2 players less. So yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I like the fact that he started with Moani. I think pretty much I would start with the same team, because essentially that's probably our better 11. Maybe give Johnson a start, give him a chance to prove himself. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult. It's difficult to say, really. It's difficult to say.
Certainly. Yep, difficult times right now. Dustin, how do you think that Thomas Frank will set up against Crystal Palace? And let me ask you, where do you see Tottenham's next win coming from?
So, I hope that Frank looks at this game and processes it from the perspective of how we actually did provide some threat. Because my concern is that this is the lineup where he has actually put in, like, two offensive midfielders, and there's been a lot more creative players in this game than other games. And I hope he doesn't look at this and go, oh, putting creative midfielders doesn't work, right? Because I hope the lesson he learns from this is how we, develop chances and actually came close or within a whisker of winning the game despite being down to 9 men. I hope that's what he processes from. I hope he doesn't look at this and go, oh, I should never do that again. Because I think that our creative players need to play together more. We didn't get it over the line this time. But if they play together more, you saw interplay between Archie Gray, Bergvall. Bergvall, I thought, had a really good game. He takes risks and makes things happen. Sometimes it doesn't work, but he does things that are surprising, that break lines, that pull opposition players out of position. So whenever Bergvall goes off, I feel that we lose something in our attacking threat. And I hope that Frank looks at this and goes, Bergvall needs to be playing more, and he needs a partner to play off with. He's been having a go at the fans, but I've got multiple notes of 69.5 minutes and 70 over minutes where you can hear the fans cheering, even though we're 2-0 down. So it's not that the fans are impossible to please. We need to see something. And the attacking play that we saw here, even though we lost the game, because we had creative players trying things and trying to attack rather than just doing long balls and long throws. There's something there, and we just need to do more of that, and that's where the next win comes from, rather than going back to just being solid.
Dustin, with what you've seen of Thomas Frank so far this season as Tottenham Hotspur head coach, do you think he's going to be successful at this football club? Do you think he's going to get the backing in the January transfer window and in future windows if the manager's here? Do you think he's going to get the patience from the Tottenham fans?
This is where I think that this is something that's best answered by the club hierarchy, because I will give him a pass for things that are out of his control. He can't control signings. He can't control the squad that he has. So if he is not supported by the squad, remember to blame the hierarchy for what they're at fault for, and then blame Frank for what he's at fault for. So, if you're going to have a go at Frank, have a go at things that he can control. But if he's not getting signings, if there's no support coming in, if we don't have the players that we need, then make sure that that's directed at the right place. So I think that the Lewis family have to support him unless they can replace him with someone better. So if you're going to stick with him, give him signings. Don't saddle him with no signings and then fire him at the end. What's the point? Then you've just wasted another year of our lives, right? So if you're gonna go with Frank, then support him with the signings. If you're not gonna go with Frank, find someone better and support them with the signings. But don't just change the manager, make them the scapegoat, and still not sign players. That's been the problem with the club hierarchy, and that's why. Why are the seats in the stadium empty? Why are we in the Champions League and our attendance is under 50,000, right? This is everything to do with things that are within the hierarchy's control. And now that the ball scapegoat is gone, we need to hold their feet to the fire.
But I think just to come in on that point, Dustin, also what we have to put into, and again, this is probably going to be an unpopular view to a lot of the viewers, but we do have to put things into perspective, because not only have we had a head coach change, we've also had a massive change at the club as well, as we know, especially after the summer window has closed. Obviously Levy's gone. There's been all sorts of as you say, hierarchy changes in the club. So we haven't actually seen what the new setup is going to do or is capable of, because all the changes came in after the summer, after the summer window. So, I mean, Christmas isn't a good time to judge a management, a hierarchy on what, because obviously we all know it's difficult to get good players at Christmas. So it's certainly going to be interesting. The next two windows, the Christmas window and then the summer window, is when we're really going to see, is the new setup going to be different? You know, are we going to go after, you know, seriously good players? Like, I mean, ever since literally the last couple of months, all I've heard is Semenyo, right? So what we should do is get in there and get that. I mean, Semenyo would definitely massively improve this club.
It's not happening. He doesn't want to come to Tottenham. They said it's not happening.
It's not happening, also, yeah.
All right.
I'll make one point about Semenyo. Eze was an Arsenal fan, right? And when you give an Arsenal fan the opportunity to screw you over, be the new Sol Campbell, they will do it. Semenyo is an Arsenal fan. Don't give him that. Don't give him that. Don't give him the opportunity to screw up our season by stringing us along and doing a Willian or something. Because like they will just do that because they want to be the hero.
Well, I just use that as an example. What I'm saying is, you know, that level of player. Like, for example, yes, we've all been critical of Xavi, but Xavi is a player. Again, he's come from a different country, from a different league. He's not really Premier League proven. Yes, he looks like a good, potentially a good talent. He looks like he could, but sometimes some players, and this is, you know, history of even our team and other teams. Some players sometimes take a season to actually really bed in and you know, get used to the country, get used to a new league. Whereas, you know, previously, as we all know, under Levy, we were never willing to pay and get the deals done. Whereas, you know, we now have a completely new setup, a completely new management system, a completely new hierarchy, if you like. And, you know, we haven't really had the chance to see if things are going to be different. Because obviously, look, it's been about 10 years since peak Poch years, right? I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Dustin. I think it was you who mentioned the, you know, Poch years, and we all do. In every one of these shows that we come on, we always talk about the good old Poch days when we were challenged, you know, those 2 seasons when we challenged the title, the, you know, Champions League final that he got us into. And it's been basically 10 years. I mean, I know he got sacked a couple of years after that, but still, you know, we're looking at the last sort of 6-7 years where the club, you know, as a team, you know, we've made no progress. We haven't really kicked on. Right. Last season, we won the Europa League, but that's it. You know, but in terms of quality, in terms of, you know, we haven't really kicked on. It's just, we've gone from manager after manager after manager after manager, you know, which hasn't worked. And here we are now with a manager that a lot of people are losing faith in. But, you know, there's a lot of changes going on in the club. And so, should we give it a chance? Like, should we give it the rest of the season? Let's see what happens at Christmas. Let's see what happens in the second part of the season when maybe some of these, you know, like Kulusevskis and Solankis come back, and maybe we make a couple of decent signings at Christmas, and things could be very different in the second half of the season. I mean, we just don't know. That's the thing. We just don't know.
The point I'll make is that if you want to judge whether the club hierarchy are doing things better, signings aren't the only thing. The first thing they need to do is wages. Because, as we know, the best correlation to league position is wages. And we've always been 6th or 7th in terms of wages. So my point is this, right? Anytime that we've been better than 6th, we've been outperforming our wage level. So we need to bring the overall wage level higher. If we intend to compete for the Champions League, we should be at least 2nd or 3rd in terms of wages. Otherwise, there's no way you're competing. Whatever Poch did was miracle work, because he was getting us from where we should be at 6th and getting us to 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And what did we reward him with? 2 transfer windows of no signings. And then firing him after we gave him lots of signings, disrupted the balance of the club, and then he had a blip.
I feel like there's so many points there that we could talk about Tottenham all day, all night, but we haven't got time for that. So we will be doing a fan show on Sunday, Craig Dearman and I, so look out for that. Darren, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Christmas, and thank you for all of your input during 2025. What are you up to professionally, and what are you up to personally?
Personally, none of your business. Professionally, I've had a good end to the year. I have just had a load more sponsorships for Sky Sports News. So when you hear Sky Sports News, sponsored by Grosvenor Casino. And then, oh, that's a fantastic shot. That's me doing all the, what they call the sponsorship bumpers. So listen for that. I'm on Sky Sports News and Sky Racing, I think. I've just done a load of characters for a new computer game called Worms, which has been good. That will be out at some point. So, so busy doing my voiceovers. Let's hope that we finish 6th or 7th.
Thank you, Darren. And Dustin, thanks so much for all of your input during this year. And of course, you're now doing a new series on this channel, tactical breakdowns. Are we expecting one for this game?
Yeah, I'll do one for this game.
Oh.
And Dustin, where can people find you if they'd like to follow you on any social media platforms?
You can find me on Twitter, LUMINOIR. I'll probably start doing some on YouTube as well, the same username.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Orcun, best wishes to you. Happy Christmas. And thanks so much for joining us so many times this year. Where can people find you?
Come and follow me on Instagram, guys. Obviously, I'm stuck in Istanbul for now. I'm hoping in 2026, actually, I might. As you know, earlier this year, I lost my mum. She was the reason why I moved to Turkey like 4 or 5 years ago. So there isn't really anything sort of keeping me here now. So I'm going to try to find a way to maybe come back to London. 2026 is going to be an interesting year for me, trying to, kind of transition in that way. So it's nice. Some of the Spurs fans have followed me on Instagram. So anybody else who wants to follow me, that'd be great. Some nice chats after games and stuff. So yeah, definitely Instagram, as you can see, London_Orcun. And I'll follow you as well.
Thank you, Orcun, and we look forward to having a drink with you at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in the near future, in 2026. Darren,
Hopefully.
Dustin, Orcun, thank you so much for your time. Never easy talking about a defeat, but as I said, we could be here all day and night talking about everything Tottenham Hotspur. We'll be doing fan shows, and we'll also be doing other various podcasts over the Christmas period and the New Year, so do look out for them. But I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who does subscribe to the channel. We are very, very close now to 200,000 subscribers on the channel, so thank you so much for all of your incredible support following this channel day in, day out. And we will be back again with another match day podcast post-match Crystal Palace on the 28th. Stay safe and well. Merry Christmas, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
We'll be right back.